The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
The mind of Pat Popolizio is a wondrous thing. And for you Pack wrestling fans, you'll get to go inside the mind of the Skip each and every episode here on the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now, here's your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Ryan Reinhardt.
It's our 25th episode of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast, our silver anniversary episode, and we're switching it up and letting the fans ask the Skip in today's brand new episode. I'm your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt, and he's in the hot seat today. He's the head coach of the Wolfpack, Pat Popolizio.
Did you just say 25?
25 episodes in.
Wow, that's impressive.
Time
Very
flies
good.
when you're not here for all of them.
I guess so. I guess you're right.
I've been here for all of them.
That's not true.
I will be here for the rest
You're
of them.
now making things up. I recall in Italy we had one without you there.
That's true. I did format it, though. But
All right.
But, Pat, I'm not sure a lot of people thought we could make it to 25 episodes of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. They said we were too young to undertake a commitment like this. They said our personalities would clash. They said we would fight over money. And I mean, I know I'm still looking for that raise from NC State. But we're still together, and we continue to be the only podcast produced by the NC State Athletics Department and the lone podcast in all of Division I wrestling that's hosted by a school. This has been a fun run, a lot of unique content, and just giving our fans the ability to get to know our student athletes and how they are off the mat. But, Pat, I really appreciate yourself and all the many guests that we've had in the opening of this podcast. It's given the Wolfpack fans a great behind-the-scenes look at your program.
Absolutely. And first of all, I just want to thank you for coming up with the idea and sticking to it and putting all this content together, because it is. And for our sport of wrestling, these are very valuable, and it's a lot of good content being put out there and some unique information that you typically, don't get to know when you see these guys competing. So it's good to really get behind these guys and understand the ins and outs of their personality and, just what it takes to get to that next level as a program too. So growth has been good together.
Guys are starting to ask why they haven't been on yet. I'm trying to hold them off.
That's good. I'm getting a lot of that. They want on the mic.
They're antsy.
Yeah.
But here's cheers to many more episodes. Next, we're shooting for that 50th anniversary. We got a lot more content to come. We still have some of the off season, but we'll be rolling right into your season. And since this is a big celebration episode, I just want to remind fans to support us in what we're doing here. You, of course, can listen to each podcast on both GoPack.com and YouTube, but please go and subscribe and download to the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast wherever you get all of your favorite podcasts. You can subscribe to our channel on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Music Play, just to name a few. Also, it's been a long time since anybody has left us a review on iTunes. Please visit our page on iTunes and leave us your thoughts, or just leave a 5-star review. Now that I rambled for a bit, let's get to why our listeners turn in this episode and get underway with hashtag Ask the Skip.
Nice. Let's clear the air on the Skip thing first too. So you go back a couple years ago, Nick, Tommy, I think even Bill Cook were referring to me in articles as the Skip. And then we made a bet prior to a dual meet that year. I think it was the last dual meet of the year, or maybe it was Missouri, one of the last ones of the year. And they bet me if they won, they got to change my Twitter name to something that was obviously a positive name to it. And I said, okay, I agreed to it, and I had to follow through. And so ever since then, it's stuck. So I get that asked a lot of times, but that was the creativity of Nick, Bill, Tommy, a couple of those other guys from that year.
And I ask you every year if you're going to change it back, and you say no.
No, I can't now.
Okay. Now we're going to get to these questions. This was not a submitted question, but something I wanted to get the conversation started. The Ncaa has recently relaxed the redshirt regulations for football. For this season, a player can play up to 4 games and still be eligible for a redshirt season. Has there been any discussion in the wrestling world if such a rule will be made? And what's your opinion on allowing redshirts to compete in duels?
Yeah, we've been following that pretty close, and I personally have mixed feelings on that. I can see where certain programs would like to implement that rule. And at the end of the day, I think it's got to go down to the safety of the athletes, and that could protect some guys, with forcing them to come back probably sooner than they want to with some injuries that they might have through the year. And if you need to, fill your lineup, I can see where that would be a huge plus to have. If you don't have a lot of depth and you look across the country, and I have friends at other programs that I talk to, and some teams have limited roster caps. So if you're a team that, maybe you are only allowed 20, 25 guys on a roster, you're going to need those kind of rules. If you're fortunate enough to have a bigger roster and depth, I don't know how much of an impact that would have, but I think that's what it's going to come down to, is where we're at in a sport, and will we utilize these rules in favor of the athlete and not so much as a coach trying to beat another team and, pull out some good red shirts that you have just so you can get a win, which, at the end of the day, you want to be competitive and you want to win, but is it going to be more so to protect the guys and put yourself in position long-term for these athletes? So there's a lot of talk about it. I'm sure this coming month at our convention will be discussed.
Is there any kind of timetable, since the season does start in October, or is this something that...
This would be something that would have to go the following year. I think all this stuff, I'm not totally sure and 100% on when these rules get pushed through, but a lot of times it's through conferences in the beginning of the year, September. So it's probably something that would go into play for the following year if we could work it out.
Now off to our fan questions. And before we start, if there were any specific questions about guys at certain weight or newcomers making their ways into the lineup, I did not include those, as I have a whole bunch of previews planned for closer towards the start of the season and didn't want to ruin any of the surprises yet. So off we go. Pat, we're going to start with the softball. I'm going to mess up a whole lot of these Twitter names, but I'll try. From One Cent Wonder, what is your go-to order at Cup of Joe's?
Wow. All right. That's pretty simple. You go to a place a lot when you open the door and they have the coffee waiting for you when you are at the cash register. So I get my coffee, large cup of coffee every day, and I'm out the door within a minute. So convenient, best coffee in Raleigh too. You got to pick them up as a podcast sponsor.
I don't drink coffee.
That's all right. All our guys do on the team, so I got them hooked too.
Also from One Cent Wonder, what would your walkout music have been at the Ncaa finals?
Oh, that's a good question. I like Johnny Cash, so I like older country. I'd have to really think about it, but it would definitely be something from Johnny Cash, Highwaymen, Willie Nelson, something along those lines. Nick picks out some pretty good ones too. So
I was just going to say, you've been fortunate, 3 guys in the finals over the last few years. How would you rate the recent selections of Nick Wisdowski, Hayden, and Mock?
I think they've all been pretty good. There was a lot of thought, I think, going into it, and guys talking before they have to make their choice. So they've had some people help them with some decisions, but so far they've all been really good, and they fit their personalities, which is most important when it comes down to those songs.
I'm not sure where this came from because I've never seen you eat at either of these places, but from Lil Caddy, do you like Moe's or Chipotle more?
That's a Nick Reenan question right there. I like Chipotle a lot better. We actually cater some meals because you can eat pretty healthy if you do it right. And these guys know I'm not a big, huge fast food fan. So
good food quickly.
Yeah, that is actually, to me, about as healthy as you can get on the run. Try to stay pretty healthy, but it's hard to do with the amount of traveling we do all the time. So, yeah, I'm more into Chipotle, and we cater quite a bit actually from there because we can throw the chips away and some other things and kind of pick what we want to eat when we want to eat it.
I look forward to being invited to one of these meals.
You're always invited.
From Chris Gibson, do you think the ACC needs to add 2 more teams for an 8-team conference tournament?
That would make for a great conference. Conferences continuing to get better and better. At the end of the day, your conference tournament helps you prepare for the national tournament. So the tougher it becomes and the more depth you get in there, I think it prepares you more and more. And that's what you're seeing right now. The ACC producing some higher level guys and national champs and All-Americans from every school. It's because they're that much more prepared after this tournament going into the national tournament. You take Tariq Wilson, for example. He went through the ACC tournament, didn't have a great ACC tournament because there were some really good guys in his weight, and it let him know what he needed to do getting ready for the NCAA tournament, and he was able to do that and prepare himself more mentally and physically going into the national tournament. So I think if we were able to get that, it would help. And that's the biggest thing, is what teams would be willing and able to add wrestling. And we got to do our part as a sport to make more teams want to add wrestling. What are we marketing? What's our value? And hopefully, with the growth of what's going on in the ACC with wrestling, some other teams, it might attract that down the road. That'd be big. It'd be great.
This one's from Pack Wrestle Fan. I don't think you can answer his last question. It's kind of a three-parter, or maybe his last question was more of a statement. But does the ACC have contracts with certain refs, or do they come from the NCAA? Does anyone know what stalling is anymore?
Okay, so yes, we are. ACC has their officials. So if you come to our conference tournament, you'll see that I think it's 5 or 6 refs that we have, probably 6 refs that are locked in being ACC officials. So the goal is to try to get those guys during ACC duels because they're ACC officials. And that's why you'll see a lot of them repeat refs when we're here at home or we're on the road. And then, when we have sometimes non-conference duels, we'll try to get other NCAA refs that we know we'll see at the NCAA tournament. But that's not us as coaches picking our refs. They're assigned to us. So we really have no say in that. Now, we'll have some non-conference duels earlier in the season, and we'll have some say in that. But for our ACC duels, they're assigned, and there's not much you can do about that. And at the end of the year, the coaches get to rank out the refs, and for the most part, I think we've had phenomenal refs in the ACC, and that's helped us prepare more for the national tournament. And that's what it's about. These refs, just like our athletes, are continuing to get better, and as our teams as well. So we're all in this together, and the better the refs you have, the more it prepares you for the national tournament. As far as stalling goes, that's a tricky subject right now because it's one of those where it's very difficult to understand what a ref's seeing. You can sit there and read the rule books all day long on what classifies stalling, but it's one of those where it's someone's opinion, and anytime you do that, you're never going to understand why they're calling it what they're seeing. But there are certain ones that you can understand. The drop down rule, and when a kid drops down to another athlete's leg and is holding on, that's pretty cut and dry. But personally, I'd like to see the push out rule, like freestyle. It takes away the stalling, and it'll take out a ref's opinion. So if a guy gets pushed out of bounds, you either get a warning first time, maybe second time it's a point. It would be nice if we were able to implement that, and I think it would help newer fans understand what stalling is, and if we could eliminate that, it would be helpful.
This next one's from me. I just thought of it while you were talking about video. Going to video review.
Yep.
This was the first year. If you had a video review, you got to throw the brick.
Yeah.
My prior years working with you, you got to come over to the table and raise a little flag.
Yes.
What do you like better, the flag or the brick?
Oof. Well, I like the brick now because Donnie, Adam, and Obi will grab it from me because they know I jump on it too quick. So now they hold it, and then I have to think about it if we want to throw it. I have to ask them before I just run over and slam the thing on the table. And then they were like, "Why'd you do that?" I was like, "I don't know. I thought we had that." So I personally like the brick now because I have to think about it a little more.
NCSU WFBS. I'm not sure what that means, but how different has bringing in such a large freshman class been, and how are they handling the college practice room so far?
No, it's really not different to what we did with the senior class you saw just happened. We brought in a huge class. I think it was 23 kids. At the time, we needed a little bit of a makeover on some things, and we felt the best way to do it was flood it with a big number of kids and mold them to what we wanted, and it seemed to work out pretty good because that senior class developed into something special. This class is a little different because we needed to attack depth. We needed to attack some high-quality guys that can go on and win national titles. So we're at a place right now where we have a lot of great mentors across the board from RTC athletes that are here training, to our coaching staff, to just people that understand the system around us now. So when we bring in a lot of these guys, there's great guidance for them, and they're not going to be distracted, or, if they have issues, we're going to be able to manage them all. And that's the biggest thing with us, is we didn't want to bring in anything we couldn't manage. And we're able now in a position to bring in a class like this and make sure that everybody's getting their needs met. As far as the guys dealing with the change from high school to college, it's always, to me, I like the challenge and watching it mentally to see who can handle it. Physically, for a day, anybody can do it. It's not that hard for these guys. Yeah, they might get taken down here and there. It's 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in. How do they manage this? And mentally, what are they doing to adjust so they can continue to succeed as time goes on? And that's what we're seeing right now. These guys have been here about 5 weeks, and our workouts they're not crazy intense, but there's still some good intensities in these practices. And these guys some of them, they're struggling on the technical side of things, but you can see the fight is there. And I'm okay with that, because with time we can fix the technique. But if the fight isn't there from the beginning, then they're going to struggle. And our guys, it's fun to watch right now, this class coming in there and competing. A lot of great goes, a lot of good intensity. And once we fine tune technique, which just takes time, these guys are going to be another tough group come a year down the road.
This one comes from NCUSAW. Pat, you've been down here 7 years now. How have you seen the high school level development in North Carolina?
7 years. Yeah, this is officially the longest place I've lived since I grew up in upstate New York. That's pretty
nice.
impressive.
It's Raleigh. This
is home. That's why I say I call this is officially home, and it's been home for a while. So the growth is starting to really come together. I think there's more and more kids at the high school level that understand what it takes to compete at the college level. And if you look and analyze the state, we are second behind PA with most colleges. So to me, the opportunity to stay in state and wrestle would motivate me as a high school wrestler. Great. And you have so many good schools now with both academics and schools that are winning and guys producing. So a lot of opportunities here in state. And it's one of those, we got to continue to work together. I think there's a lot of pull in different directions, and that sometimes can kill, the power of a state. And I think it's starting to smooth itself out a little bit here, and just got to keep these guys at a young age, keep them all the way through. But there's so many resources for these guys to be successful with these RTCs and college coaches floating around and RTC athletes that, are open and out there. I know Timmy McCall right now is in the state doing a clinic as we speak. I know Mock has been all over the state of North Carolina. Our RTC guys are always out there willing and able. Our doors are open to RTC athletes to come here and train. So, and even coaches stopping by our room to just watch practice. There's so much going on that these guys can benefit, and we benefit a lot. The better the state is, the better our college teams are going to be. And that's not just us at NC State. That's all the other colleges. So there's a lot of good growth going on, and there's a lot of good leadership. So we got to continue to stay together and become one of the best states in the country.
This is from one of those Twitter handles. We might have to figure out a name change, but NCSU Curse. That just sounds kind of evil.
Yikes.
Can you explain how scholarships are used in wrestling? I know it's not like football where everybody gets a full ride.
Very tough. And to me, that's probably the hardest part of the job is how do you dictate the scholarship money? A lot of it comes down to need and timing. So, sometimes you might have opportunity to get a kid, but at the same time, you have a young guy that's on a good amount of money. So it's like, all right, we got to go to this next weight. And you want to reward guys with success. So, we're allowed 9.9 scholarships in wrestling, and it is cut up on however we want to give it out. So in our room, there are 9.9 scholarships out of the 35 guys on our roster. That's divvied up between the 35 guys. And that's not saying everybody's on money. Some just varies from time to time. And, I can just tell you here, I always try to take care of the guys that are getting the job done in the classroom and on the mat. And I always find a way, and it always seems to work itself out. We've had numerous kids come here as walk-ons and leave on a lot of money because of what they've done, and they've earned it. And that's the way I built this program up, is anything these guys get, they're going to earn. And I think that's what makes a successful program. So we're continuing to work on that. But at the same time, there are some kids that have earned it in high school off their results. So it's that fine line of balancing and everything out. And I think our staff has done a phenomenal job to continue to recruit the best kids in the country to come here and make the kids that are in our program happy with rewarding them with keeping that carrot out there in front of them.
And despite I shouldn't say his, I don't know, but despite this name, NCSU curse is getting another question. How are you able to get so many guys on the team and have enough room to practice? Any plans for expansion of the Wolfpack practice facilities?
Oh, that's the toughest question of it all right there. We're fortunate enough to have a lot of coaches on staff. So I would say through the day, during a typical day here at NC State, we probably have 3 to 4 practices. Sometimes you'll walk in the room, there might just be 2 guys and a coach. Sometimes it's 10 guys and a coach. And then obviously our day-to-day practice, there'll be our whole team, but we obviously can't put 40 guys on the mat at once. So we do start pretty early in the morning and we're here pretty late at night, running workouts. So we clear the mat as best we can. And like I said, it's great to have these older guys that we can run our RTC practices, implement some college kids in there at times. There's a meeting tomorrow with some high-profile people, with some important decision makers to continue to brainstorm and see what we can do to obviously add that facility. I truly believe it's going to happen at the right time with the right people connected to it. And there are, let's just say, some interesting conversations going on right now, but I think it's a matter of time before that happens, and the right people connected, willing and able to do some things to make this room a reality. And it's well deserved for these guys that have put the time in. And it's going to be a major factor, to get to that next level, to bring home the first place trophy. That room is going to be a major stepping stone for us, and that's something that we got to make happen with time. And I know the administration's working extremely hard to put us in position for that. So hopefully we get some more clear answers to you on that one. But for right now, that's kind of where we're at.
In a meeting like that, do you just take that 4th place team trophy and just put it on the table before you talk?
Right. I think that, I don't know. I think it goes back to do your part first and then ask later kind of thing. And that's something I tell my guys that as well. Like, hey, don't knock on this door and ask for something until you've at some point proven yourself. And I feel like, and it's, everybody's taken notice and helped us with resources here. And Dr. Yao has been a big part of that. Our guy, we put some work in time and some results, and we keep going forward and building a great working relationship in there. And that's a big part of it. This room will be a major impact with bringing home that first place trophy, which is the ultimate goal. So, yeah, kind of one of those. Show me what you got, and then we can talk. And, I know this team, this program has done a little bit of that, and we got to continue to do more of the result thing as well.
This one comes from Slingshot Willie. Coach talks of recruiting guys who buy into the Wolfpack system, pack mentality. Who influenced your thought process on building a specific system?
That goes back to years of experience in coaching, being around some of the best coaches, mentors. So it's a little bit of everything. There's some, I can go back to my high school coach, Coach Benna's greatest high school, to me, one of the greatest high school coaches. Fortunate to have him. To athletes when I was training, and coaches like Andy Saris, Mark Cody, my college coach, John Smith. You take bits and pieces of everybody, and then you get introduced to some pretty successful business people. We were actually, I think it was year 1 here, Coit Cooper he was actually a professor at UNC, but was very well connected to the NWCA wrestling, and we sat down and talked, and they kind of came up with this pack mentality we liked it. We were brainstorming on it. Beasley was here. He's one of the smarter, more intelligent, thinking outside the box kind of guy. And Breeze was here at the time. We all just kind of sat down, talked, and put some thoughts together. And then as time goes on, it's my job to keep tweaking that and explaining to the guys what it is and to our alumni and fans. And it's caught on. Guys take a lot of pride in it. And we keep implementing ideas to it and new people and staff. And Donnie's done a phenomenal job. Melissa, Adam, Obi, our RTC guys. So it's everybody brainstorming, but at the end of the day, it's just the mentality that we instill in our guys. And it's a successful way to attack academics and wrestling.
This next one, I swear, came from a family member of yours, but on Twitter, she goes by Linda Hall. Starts off, "You're a great coach," as evidenced by this past season.
I think you already know who that is for the last name.
But then again, she said, then I thought this was Melissa because she continues, "Your staff, especially Melissa, is amazing." But her real question, what makes a great assistant coach? What characteristics do you look for when you hire an assistant?
Yeah, that's that's a great question. I've been very fortunate enough to have some of the best assistants ever that obviously now have gone on to be college coaches. Three of them now are head coaches, 2 in D1 and 1 in D2. So I think it's the willingness to listen and help, but also not be afraid to voice their opinion. True passion, that's a given. I think you get eaten up at this level if you're not passionate about it. But the loyalty thing to me is probably one of the biggest things. It's hard to find nowadays, but I've been very fortunate enough to have very loyal coaches that are driven, but also have that are very intelligent and have great ideas and know how to implement it. The communications factor, but I think the ego. To me, when I look at it right now, there's no egos that have been involved in any of the staffs. And that's what has made us successful. Guys don't care about what they accomplish as coaches. They don't care about what they get recognition-wise. They care about the athletes getting what they need and succeeding at this level and putting those guys in front of them in any aspect. And these guys make a ton of sacrifices outside this room. I don't think people realize. I know Adam Hall probably was gone 3 weeks this last month. Donnie's the same way. Melissa doesn't get to travel and recruit and do things like that, but she's on the road doing stuff with women's wrestling right now. You look at Obi's going to be gone almost a month out of the next 2 months, helping with the RTC and then college traveling. So these guys put the athletes first, and then, obviously their families are a big part of it. So there's sacrifices being made, and these guys are all been willing to do it. So, yeah, it's the ego. I think at the end of the day, these guys don't care about that kind of stuff.
Last one. We'll get you out of here in this. Jesse Esselman. During the summer, what are your guys allowed to do in practice times, both returnees and newcomers?
Well, there's we're a safety exception sport, which allows our athletes to come in the room whenever they want, and us as coaches be in there to make sure we're able to watch them. So you have that aspect. The guys can train whenever they want. If they're in summer school, they can come in and volunteer their time to lift. So our guys are lifting as well. They basically can do anything they want. We're allowed to run RTC workouts, so we are in there a couple days a week doing that. But for the most part, our guys nowadays, I like to say it's 11 months out of the year. Our practices kind of go 11 months straight. Guys are training for freestyle, so you get that. Right now, there's not a time during the year where a guy's not getting ready for a competition. Renan's getting ready to wrestle in a tournament overseas. Hayden, Mock, those guys are getting ready to go. They got some time, but they'll be going to the UW23 Nationals. Nick just went over to Turkey. So at any given time, there's somebody training for something, and it by default pulls other guys into the room who are very motivated to get better and be a part of that and watch it and train side by side with them. So it's been good. It's been fun, and it's what's making our program going in the right direction right now.
That was a fun way to celebrate our 20th episode. Pat, I don't think you sweated too much over in that chair. I think our fans were...
My arms are soaked.
Our fans were so nice, and they set you up with a whole lot of softballs.
Good.
But we look forward to many more Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcasts finishing up this offseason and, of course, covering the Wolfpack Wrestling program during the 2018-19 campaign. As a sneak peek, I already know our next episode will visit with a recent alum who's going into the Marines. And his story and mindset is exactly what Pack Mentality is all about. I want to thank everybody for listening today. This is your Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast covering all things NC State wrestling. Until next time, Wolfpack wrestling fans, go Pack!
Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast is produced by the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, go to MatTalkOnline.com.